I'm not a lawyer, but I really don't like the fact that I understand, I believe, I know that if I was a judge, I would not take this. I want actual fact.
No, that's what lawyers do.
He's what I
That's
would.
our profession.
Yeah, but that's not mine. But I'm kind of smart
That's
too.
why you're not a lawyer.
So
But that's what I'm telling you. That's what we do.
okay,
it's
I
always
understand.
never direct.
Okay, sir, we're done. We're done. What I would suggest that since we're still alive and up here and the money is still there, if the councilman allow me, I would ask. Okay, before that, let me go back. If this resolution really adjusts, if we pass this resolution tonight, would that automatically say that money is for District 3 project? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, I'm done.
Madam Councilwoman, sorry, through the mayor. Here's my concern. Let's say that there's one that they do. Right now, we have no list of sidewalks that need to be repaired. We have no specifics at all. Let's say we fix every bad sidewalk in District 3. We do some landscaping. I think that's a great thing. I want Councilman Biename to get good stuff in District 3. But let's say there's $500,000 left over now. I'd love for that money to be available for District 4 or for District 2 or, hey, maybe even District 1 so that any leftover money can go elsewhere. And right now, we're just saying 1.5 for District 3, and I'd really feel more comfortable if we addressed if there's leftover money at a certain point, I don't know, a year from now when the fiscal year is ending, if we talk about where that rest of that money would go, because it's only fair. I mean, Councilwoman, District 4, yeah, I work in your district. I know some sidewalks that could be fixed. You follow where I'm coming from. I think we just need to address where the money goes if it's not all needed in District 3.
Okay, so if I can amend the resolution
May I-
that
may
if
I- may I-
any monies are left over, it's up to...
Madam City Attorney, I would like to ask Mr. Etienne to go ahead and read tab K once again for us.
Okay.
I'd like to, we have my
One
discussion?
second,
Okay.
Madam,
Propose-
Mr. Clerk, go ahead.
Proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, memorializing certain financial allocations of revenue derived from the Biscayne land and lease proceeds, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Thank you. We don't need a motion. There's already a motion. Or is there any motion to approve?
There's
Or
no.
there is a motion to
May I
approve.
have
We
my-
already discussed it. Is there
I
a
have
motion
not
to approve?
discussed.
Motion to approve it.
So move. Roll call, please.
Excuse me, I have not gotten to speak.
She hasn't spoken.
Councilwoman.
I am entitled to speak on this,
You had
please.
spoken already
I
on
did
it. You were
not.
the first person to speak
I
on
did
it.
not speak at all.
You wanted to know what was this. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and speak and then
I
roll
haven't
call
said the first
immediately.
word on this motion.
Okay, we're
I've
going
been
to have a
very-
long night tonight.
We are, but
So
I've been
go ahead
very
and speak
patient.
and then Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
I have not said the first word on this. and
Go
I have-
ahead.
I have plenty to say. Thank you. First, I have questions to the attorney. Last week, I sent a request to our, this is for the record, I sent a request through the mayor, for a legal opinion as to the outcome of the vote that was taken on August 27th as to whether the money was to be allocated to the entire city or to just District 3. I requested that our city attorney reread the request made on August 27th. Was a request for streetscape and sidewalk funding using money. Our discussion was, okay, where the money was coming from. There was absolutely no discussion whatsoever before the vote was taken as to where the money was going to be allocated. I specifically referred to a study that was done by Aleem Ghani, our Public Works Director, and said, yes, my District 2 had the most work that was required. If it was the intention of the maker of the motion that it was to be allocated, or if it was the understanding of our attorney that money was to be allocated strictly to one district, then I should have been corrected at that time and said, Councilwoman Keyes, it's nice that your district needs money, but this is not for you, this is strictly for District 3. There was no mention. The motion was, the item was read exactly, streetscape and sidewalk funding. There was no mention. I've gone back and watched the video, which I asked our attorney to watch the video. I was not given any type of legal opinion. The councilman made a motion, yes. He did not say, yes, I make a motion for money to be allocated to one district. So I'm okay with the fact if you want to do this, we want to memorialize it, then we're going to do it right and legally. But my first question is, on this resolution, it states, Madam Attorney, that the mayor and council allocated $1.5 million to be used to District 3. I think that is incorrect, and I want the record to reflect that it was not voted for District 3, because I said I did not vote for District 3. I asked to have this vote reconsidered 3 times. I was ignored, and this resolution is inaccurate. It's a misstatement because the council did not allocate it to one district. Discussion afterwards stated, in fact, Mayor Tondreau said 3 times when I asked that it was for the entire city. When I asked how it was going to be allocated, Mayor Tondreau said, the city, the city, the city. Okay? That is
District 3 is not in the city?
I said the entire city or District 3, and you said 3 times the city.
I see.
Going further, we have a resolution, and the minutes reflect exactly how the resolution or the request was read, stating that it was for stating that it is for streetscape and sidewalk funding. This resolution, Madam Attorney, says that a motion was made and the City Council agreed to use $1.5 million for streetscape sidewalk. And you've included 2 very broad terms, beautification and capital improvements. Beautification and capital improvements was not voted on. It was not in the request. It's not on the minutes. That is a huge difference, because we sat up here and talked about how badly the entire city needs sidewalks. We have safety to life issues here. We've got sidewalks that are broken. People, we have liabilities. There's a lawsuit about to happen. And to add language, beautification and capital improvements, I don't know where you got that, but it's wrong. It's a misstatement, and I would like that struck from this resolution.
I remember Councilman Bien-Aimé did ask for his district to get this money. They even had
as
some
the money
people
for
from
the,
After-
for
after
the
the
money,
vote.
and even the city attorney
After the vote was
specified,
taken.
is it for District 3? And we said yes.
That was all done after we voted. We had talked, we had a resolution, a motion. There was no discussion. You cannot change the intent of a vote.
Why don't tonight we have
vote.
a resolution?
Do we realize that we're the one that has the power up here to
We have the
do
power
or
to do it
not?
legally, but
So why
this
we
has not been
whining
done.
to the city attorney? So why don't we, I think there is a resolution on the table.
But the
There's a
resolution
second.
is wrong. It's misstated.
Okay,
if-
so
if-
What you want to
you-
change in the resolution?
I want to state that we allocated $1.5 million for streetscape and sidewalk, not beautification, not capital improvement. And if you all want
for
to
the
vote,
city or for District 3?
I don't care. If you all want to allocate $1.5 million tonight for your sidewalks, your streetscape, beautification, and capital improvements, that's fine. But don't recite misstatements in this resolution. You
Mr.
want to
Clerk,
vote that
roll call,
way.
please.
Okay.
That being
Mayor
said,
Dun-
that being
Mayor
said,
Dundro?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
no, I'm not through.
Wait.
Please,
I get my directions from the mayor.
Roll
I'm
call,
sorry.
please.
The mayor.
Okay.
Of,
I'm not through talking.
but I get my,
So I want to discuss the issue now that I am unhappy with the way the resolution has been written, misstated, and how I have not been
Mr.
gotten a
Clerk.
legal opinion.
Mayor
Roll call, please.
Dundro,
Yes.
Oh, I don't get to speak?
Vice Mayor Galvin, Councilwoman Sterritt.
I'm sorry. I was unclear as to whether or not the councilwoman was going to be allowed to finish her statement.
I was given my orders from the mayor, the chair of the meeting. She wanted me to
Madam
call
Attorney,
roll call.
don't I get to speak
So
as a
do you wanna just
councilwoman?
record
I
your
didn't know
vote?
that I had a 3-minute
Vice Mayor
limit.
Galvin.
I'm happy to record a vote at such time as I'm clear as what the mayor's decision was with the councilwoman finishing the statements that she had to give.
Councilwoman was repeating herself.
So
No, I
it-
wasn't.
We
I
need to
haven't
move on,
even
and we
discussed
need
the
to move
issue.
on.
Okay.
Can we move
I was
on,
not
please?
repeating myself.
Councilwoman, Vice Mayor Galvin, how do you vote, sir?
No.
Councilwoman Sterritt, how do you vote, ma'am?
yes.
Councilman Bien-Aimé, how do you vote, sir?
And what about
Yes.
the public hearing? No
Council-
public hearing on this?
Councilwoman Keys, how do you vote, ma'am?
Absolutely not. This is a sham. It's ridiculous.
Measure passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Mayor,
The public does not get to speak.
Mr. Clerk, can we move on?
Tab N.
Madam Mayor, through the city attorney, since public hearing was not allowed at this item, how does that affect this decision going forward?
If you want, we can reopen public hearing and we call a roll call. But since it's already voted, we need to move on.
Well, no, I just want to know. We didn't open
public will have
We
an
didn't allow the
opportunity to
council
speak.
to speak.
They will have an opportunity to speak. Madam Councilwoman, you have been spoken and spoken and repeated them yourself and trying to
No, I have
confuse
not.
everybody.
No, I have
we
not.
must move on.
I'm not trying to
Mr. Clerk,
confuse,
please move on.
but I'm
Tab
not-
out.
Madam
Tap
Secretary,
in.
we didn't
An ordinance of
have
the
public
mayor
hearing.
and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida,
Madam Mayor.
amending the city of North Miami's comprehensive plan pursuant to chapter 163 Florida statutes by updating the future land use map in order to assign appropriate land use categories to newly annexed properties in an area bordered on the west side by the Biscayne Canal, on the east side by Northeast 4th Avenue, on the south side by Northeast 131st Street, and on the north side by Northeast 135th Street, otherwise known as Area 3, further authorizing the transmittal of the comprehensive plan amendment to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and all other review agencies as required under Section 163.3184 Florida statutes, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. That was tab N.
Okay, Madam Mayor, if I may, I didn't want to interrupt the clerk. Public comment was allowed in the beginning of the meeting. However, it is the practice that for each item, for each resolution and ordinance, you open up public hearing. So I would recommend that you allow public comments for.
Well, since we're going to
Are
open
you
public
saying- are
hearing,
you
they
saying
can
it's
go ahead and do
illegal?
both at this.
It's not illegal, no.
Oh.
Okay. Good. Do I hear a motion for tab N?
Move tab in.
Second for just a quick question.
Discussion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just unclear through you to staff or whomever. We've already incorporated this neighborhood. In fact, this neighborhood's residents voted in our mayoral election. Why is this back in front of us this evening? What procedurally did we do wrong?
Through the mayor, vice mayor, nothing was done wrong. Whenever we incorporate a new jurisdiction, if you look at the city's map, it doesn't reflect this. So now, by approving this tonight, we will amend our comprehensive map, which will be forwarded to the state to incorporate or to reflect these areas now.
Okay.
And then by doing that, if this was to pass, then every section now has to have the proper zoning, which now has to be incorporated. But we have to update the comprehensive land use map and all of those regulatory requirements prior to providing a zone for it,
Gotcha.
which is tab M, Mary.
Gotcha. All right, public hearing on tab M as in Mary is now open. Is there anybody who would like to speak on tab M as in Mary?
No.
It's N as in
No, it's
Nancy.
N as in Nancy.
I'm sorry. N as in Nancy. Public hearing is now closed on tab N as in Nancy. Roll call vote for tab N as in Nancy.
No discussion? No council
Oh, sorry.
discussion?
Any further council discussion on tab N as in Nancy?
No.
Seeing none, thank you.
Vice
roll
Vice
call
Mayor Galvin?
Yes.
Councilman Bien-Aimé?
Yes.
Councilwoman Keys?
Yes.
Councilwoman Steril?
Yes.
Mayor Thundro? No vote. Item passes 4-1.
4-0. She's not in the room.
I'm sorry,
so-
4-0.
All right,
Thanks for the
tab
correction.
M as in Mary is now open. Mr. Clerk, if you will, tab M.
An ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending the city's official zoning map referenced in Article 1, Section 1-106 to reflect the rezoning of the newly annexed properties bordered on the west side by the Biscayne Canal, on the east side by the Northeast 4th Avenue, on the south side by Northeast 131st Street, and on the north side by Northeast 135th Street, otherwise known as Area 3, in order to assign appropriate zoning categories that are consistent with the city's land development regulations and comprehensive plan, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. That was tab M.
Move for approval.
Second.
Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed. Mr. Clerk?
Vice Mayor Galvin,
Yes.
Mayor Thundro,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sterriel,
Yes.
Councilwoman Keys,
Yes.
Councilman Bieneme.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
There is a reason why we're going backward. No, not really.
I remember in the beginning they
Because they
moved.
were put back
Oh, I was not
Yeah.
here. Okay, no
Agenda.
problem.
No.
So we're on tab O now.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, let me find it in this little thing. All right.
Mr. Clerk.
In ordinance,
Mr. Clerk, before you go further, I'd like to let the citizens know that they will have an opportunity to speak on tab K.
okay,
All right?
yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
Tab O. In ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending Article 4, Division 3 entitled Non-Residential Districts, specifically at section 4-302 entitled Uses Permitted to Establish Recreation, Entertainment, Outdoor as a Special Exception Use in the M1 zoning district to foster economic growth consistent with the City of North Miami Comprehensive Plan, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. That
Do I
was
hear a
tab
motion?
O.
So move.
Motion.
Second for discussion.
Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed. Any discussion, Councilwoman
Yeah,
Keys?
I have a question. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
If there's an applicant in front of us this evening, is this just a general, I'm sorry, I was confused. I thought this was just a general move.
Oh, this is an ordinance? You're right.
If there's an applicant in front of us this evening, that would be putting the cart before the horse. We have to first talk about the zoning, and then the applicant would come back to us at a future meeting, if I'm not
Okay.
correct.
I'm sorry, the applicants actually would go to the Board of Adjustment
Okay,
because
so-
it's a special
okay.
exception. So technically, yes. So it's a change to your future land use amendment. And the applicant brought it to the city's attention, but this is not applicant specific. This is going to the entire M1 district. So you really shouldn't look at it in terms of an applicant. You're correct,
It
Councilman
was
Galvin.
done at the request of Desert Car Museum, so technically not an applicant. I have two questions. One, with this ordinance and we allow this, can we establish any requirement for walls and securities if we're going to have outdoor entertainment? And number two, I would like to know if we can restrict outdoor entertainment to not include X-rated. It sounds weird. I'd rather not have X-rated outdoor live entertainment.
Right.
We really don't want to attract. We've got a potential adult entertainment club around the corner. We don't want to bring people in at night till all hours of night, sitting there watching X-rated movies and being in our neighborhood. I would
Right.
rather
So-
not see that.
So, Councilwoman, so what this does is just allow outdoor recreation in the M1 district, not any type. So that could include miniature golfing, for example, an outdoor recreational sport. What you're talking about is a specific project, so that's going to go before the Board of Adjustment through the special exception process, and they're going to specifically say, I want to have a miniature golf, and you're going to say, well, make sure there's no lewd no lewd pictures of anyone in there, and I want to have a movie screen, but make sure it's so on and so forth. So that's
So
where
this'll be a special
those specifics,
exception? Okay,
exactly.
fine, thank you.
So for now, it's just a general overall allowance of this use in M1.
Thank you.
Very good. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mayor Thundro,
Yes.
Councilman Bieneme,
Yes.
Councilwoman Keys,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sterriel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Galvin.
Yes.
Ordinance passes 5-0. Tab P. An ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami amending chapter 2 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances to update, organize, and clarify specific sections of the chapter, including substantive, legal, stylistic, and organizational changes, while providing consistent use of terms and correction of scrivener's errors, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. That's tab P.
Do I hear a motion?
Move for discussion.
Second. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed. Do you wish to speak? Okay. Public hearing is closed. Discussion. Councilwoman Keys, any questions?
I do. I have two questions on this ordinance. The first question, through the mayor to the city attorney, you prepared this. I don't know if we have more issues, but originally this came before us, I believe, 2 meetings ago, and on page 16, it has to do with filing complaints, procedure of complaint and violation, and it had that we've struck it out that the complaint goes to the city manager, goes strictly to the city attorney, and the attorney would submit the complaint to the appropriate federal, state, or county agency. Why did you change complaint to the appropriate federal, state to if appropriate?
Because it really depends on what the nature of the complaint is. So, for example, if someone were to complain that someone was wearing hot yellow shorts in the street, and so, there's some allowance of discretion there, as is in the current ordinance, that there is some discretion that would continue.
So if our city attorney feels that a citizen's complaint is not appropriate, the city attorney would have the sole discretion to say this is not appropriate and the complaint goes nowhere?
So if you look at the current ordinance, it says a preliminary investigation shall be undertaken if each legally sufficient complaint. So that's in your current ordinance as it stands.
We're making it better.
So the city attorney would make the determination as to whether it's legally sufficient or not. So that discretion is not added, it's not being added, it's consistent with your current ordinance.
So what will the citizen do if the city attorney decided it was not sufficient? Where does the citizen go? They're left out in the cold because
yeah, so let me address that as well. So if you look at section B, which is in your current ordinance, it says that the second sentence says, if upon completion of the preliminary investigation, the city attorney finds no probable cause to believe that a violation has been committed, the city attorney shall dismiss the complaint with the issuance of a report and so on. So your current ordinance allows for the dismissal even of a complaint.
We're making this better, and we're making this for our citizens.
Right, and so your citizens certainly have the right to go to whatever agency. It doesn't preclude anyone from going to the police department, from going to the state attorney's office, from going to the Department of Ethics.
Okay. Second question through our mayor. On page 5, it appears that in March we added a charter authority board, and we gave some broad powers to that board, and one of them was that they could spend, without the approval of our council, they could spend up to $25,000 without council approval.
You said the question was for me?
No, it's through you to the city attorney.
Okay.
I'm asking why you have, first of all, we don't have a charter school, so our charter authority board is really moot.
Right.
Why did you go back in there and cross out 25,000 and increase the amount to be spent without council approval to $100,000?
Right. So yeah, you currently do not have a charter
Right.
school
So why would
or
we even
charter
address
board. The only reason that this what is addressed is because everything was being addressed. And the reason that it was changed, it's recommended to be changed, and it's certainly up to the council from 25 to 100, is to make it consistent with your procurement code. Currently, as you know, in your city's procurement code, anything below $100,000 is within the discretion of the city manager. Above the $100,000
This is not the city manager. This is another board that's been appointed. And I
Right,
would
well-
recommend to our council that we do not give an appointed board the unlimited discretion to spend up to $100,000.
Okay.
That's my only questions. Thank you.
Do I hear a
So
motion for approval?
I make a motion to amend. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to clarify or to strike or not make the change on item 2 of 2-253.
Councilwoman Keys, we already have a motion and a second on the floor. It was moved by Councilwoman Steril and seconded by Mayor Dundro.
I'll go as is advertised.
Okay.
If it doesn't
So
pass, then we'll move
how would
on.
you like me to proceed, Mayor?
Roll call, please.
Roll call. Okay. Councilwoman Steril,
Yes.
Councilwoman Keys,
No.
Vice Mayor Galvin,
No?
Mayor Dundro,
Yes.
Councilman Bieneme.
Yes.
Measure passes 3-2. Tab Q.
Before we go on to
Oh.
type Q, I would like to hear the citizens on the on tab K. They didn't have time, an opportunity to speak. Now, citizen forum is open.
Madam Mayor, just
Ma-
before you go, can I say one thing? I hope that we not create a precedent.
That is
So I would like to address the city attorney. Are we doing something illegal? Because once you start it, it will go out there that you did we did something illegal,
That's
and
what
we
I'm
have to
trying to
reverse it.
prevent. That's
So,
what I'm trying
no,
to prevent.
But if you allow me, I'd like to ask the city. I don't mind that you reopen
Sure.
it. That's fine. But I would like to ask the city attorney if what you did was illegal or you just being courteous to the citizens. Go ahead, madam.
So it is not illegal. I believe she's just being courteous to the citizens.
It
The
was only an
citizens have
oversight.
had.
The reason it was only an oversight, so I think it is my mistake. They have the right to speak. I'm giving you the opportunity to do so.
Right.
Citizen forum is open. Clark.
Annie Montgomery, 2082 Laurel Lane. I feel at loss because the vote has been taken, and I would like to have been able to speak before that. I watched the August 27th meeting. Our mayor said 3 times, it's for the city, it's for the whole city. Watch the tape. It's for the city. And then that was after the council voted 5-0. Not before. That was after the vote was taken on this August 27th. And that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And our mayor sits up there and says she represents this whole city. I do not feel represented by my mayor. Have not since she was elected, and definitely did not on August 27th. I attended a workshop Councilman Phillip put on, and he assured those people that the 1.5 million was for his district because that's the way the vote was. And he was going to at his first presentation, he was going to do sidewalks and flooding and landscaping in the area that just got annexed, which people had never paid a dime in taxes to the city of North Miami. This is a sad situation. But whatever comes up, we have a 3-2 vote, no matter how it happens. Thank you.
Willie Gouda, 2100 Keystone Boulevard. I would like to know where the tax money is coming from. It looks like Keystone Point and San Souci is the main breadwinner of North Miami. I mean, I understand you probably have sidewalks to fix, but I think if it's 1.5 million, it should be for the whole city, not just for part of the city. That's a lot of money. Hey, I'm paying heavy tax dollars for this, and I feel North Miami and San Souci, we don't get much done by us. there's like, okay, I'll take for instance, there's a park right by Broad Causeway. The pilings are still there. Where is I used to go on that boardwalk to go fishing. It's been like that for already, what, 10 years, where there's no plywood or whatever you want to put on there? You know, I feel like we don't get nothing for our tax dollars. I'm sorry, you know. And they did some work by my sidewalks too, and they did a poor job of it. It looks like patchwork. If you're going to do sidewalks, you do the whole thing, not just a piece here and a piece there. That's all I got to say.
Mary Estime Irvin, 1125 Northeast 125th Street. I congratulate you, Council. I'm excited for District 3. I am not a resident of District 3. I'm a resident of District 2. But if I were a resident of District 3, I would be proud that that district is going to look a little different than it does right now. I just don't understand. I get that some people pay more taxes, but if we are a whole, why would you not be concerned with areas in the district that needs repair? I think it's a great job. Congratulations to you, Council.
Thank you. Public hearing is now closed. City Manager, didn't we set aside money to fix that boardwalk 2 meetings ago?
Yes.
Okay. That's answered the question two of the gentlemen who just spoke. There have been money set aside to fix that boardwalk. All right. Now tab O.
Tab Q.
Q, I'm sorry.
Walking from the back.
Mayor?
Citizen forum was closed.
Public hearing. William Previtel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. William Previtel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. First, let me thank the council for allowing this second form of the forum, to have the forum initially at the beginning of the meeting to address some issues and to have this follow-up. It's very much appreciated. I wish there was more public discussion on all of the items that were voted upon. That didn't quite happen tonight. In respect to some of the votes that took place this evening, without making a decision on whether it should have been a positive or a negative vote, may I express a concern that there seem to be a number of items that we're voting on that are very incomplete in their details, particularly
This is
financially.
public hearing on tab K.
Well, this is a sort of a general speaking about a number of the issues and tying that in, if I may. It's just my concern is that I wish we had more detail if we're going to vote on something, that financial matters such as retirement plans, that be articulated. It may be a positive, but that it be articulated. Or if there's something that could be dumping additional fill at Biscayne Landing, that be fully understood as to the toxicity and its
We're coming
acceptability.
to it. Give us a chance at least to go ahead. We were talking about tab K, specifically tab K, where the citizens didn't have a chance to speak on it. It was my mistake. I didn't open public forum on it, public hearing on it. Now I'm giving them an opportunity to speak on it.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Proceed, Mayor.
Tab Q, please.
Tab Q, Biscayne Landing environmental update and discussion. Tab Q.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Prior to having a presentation on this particular item, I want to inform you as to why this item is before you tonight. First of all, let me inform you that the groundwater remediation system, which is a separate contract and device that's being implemented by C.H. Stewart Hill, is different from the developer. That system has been installed. That system is going through the normal process of going through its mechanics to be to get the system working for the groundwater remediation system. So that's just the update on that. But as far as this issue, the reason why we're before you here tonight is because of a section in our lease agreement that talks about restrictions that the tenant must not violate any environmental law. So therefore, I feel that there has been a violation of Section 9, and specific Section 9.1, that talks about the type and use of the field that must be brought onto the site. To give you some history, the developer submitted an application to DERM back on January the 25th to bring or to use excavated material and bring that material onto the site. DERM responded on January the 5th, indicating that the excavated material that they were requesting to use is approved for reuse on our site. Staff had some concerns, and we did further inquiry because we felt, and this was through our contractor, Mr. Joe Celestine and Mr. Aleem Ghani, that material did not meet the law. I believe is Section 24, Chapter 24. So they had some concerns. We got a follow-up email from DERM confirming that the material could be used. We asked DERM to then send us an official letter. We did get that letter dated March 11th of 2013, stating that DERM Miami-Dade County has no objection to using the field. Mr. Joe Celestine and Aleem Ghani continue to have some concerns about the type of material that was being used. Subsequent to that, we did get a letter from DERM dated May the 31st, and in fact, after they did retesting, they rescinded the application to use that soil. At that time, DERM had to appear before the Miami-Dade County Quality Control Board to ask for a variance, being that the type of material went against that particular chapter, and they were able to come up with a remediation plan using the existing groundwater treatment system that's in place to remediate the existing contaminants. And the Quality Control Board felt that what DERM presented to them as a source of remediation was sufficient. We did appear, we did express our concerns about that particular material. Nonetheless, I felt that because the Section 9 was still in violation, I do not have the authority to move forward, although the Quality Control Board accepted DERM's plan to remediate this soil. I do not have the leeway, although the variance was granted, to violate the contract. It must be done by this board. So therefore, tonight I asked Mr. Celestine to give you a very quick overview as to what we experienced over those several months. We also have DERM here to give you further explanation from their perspective as to what took place and how they feel about the material and the Quality Control Board's decision. So
this is the CH2, the
no.
incident that took place?
No,
this is the soil.
This is the soil. Okay. Okay.
So basically, the soil that was brought onto the site, DERM initially approved it. Staff had some concerns. DERM reevaluated the soil, determined that it did violate the chapter. However, they appeared before the Quality Control Board, presented a remediation plan that was acceptable before the Quality Control Board, and they granted them the variance. However, it still violates Chapter 9, and I cannot alone make that decision. That must be granted by this board whether or not you want to accept the findings of the Quality Control Board and the remediation plan, or whether or not you want to get a subsequent examination from an independent body.
Definitely. First of all, when I swore in on the 11th of June, I swore to protect this city, the citizens of this city, their health and their welfare. I don't comprehend something of this magnitude would pass by without us knowing about it until it exploded. If it wasn't for former Mayor Wolin, who was just happened to be there with a client, I wouldn't have known about it. And subsequently, after speaking with Mayor Wolin, I had a discussion with Mr. Celestin, who explained to me the magnitude of what was going on. And I'm really hoping that in the future, such thing does not happen. Anything happens that concerns the environment, the health of our citizens, we need to be immediately informed. And reading this, I am not convinced at all that our citizens, our residents, we have a responsibility in this city. And down the road, when people start developing any type of cancer, any type of disease because of what's happening, when people go back, they're going to say it's this government here that did not do what they were supposed to in order to protect the citizens. We are going to, I am suggesting that we do have an independent study made by independent scientists for us to have a clear results so we can put our residents at ease. This is so huge that from the beginning of this thing on Citizen Forum, most people who have spoken were about this, their concern. And we are going to move on, or we are going to, this city is not about the money that we can get from anybody, it's about the welfare and the health of our citizens. Even if we have the money, if they are not healthy, what's the use for the money? Because basically the money is for them, it's not for anybody in particular. I want to make sure that an independent study is done and by an independent scientist for us to get the results in order to know and to put our residents into rest, in peace, before we can go any further. I'd like to see that happen. This is my suggestion to you.
Absolutely, Mayor. And let me just clarify, Mr. Wolin, I know he brought it to your attention, but there was him bringing it to you certainly did not lack the staff not bringing it to you. We had just appeared before the Quality Control Board. He happened to be there at that meeting. We had nothing to report until we got the results of the Quality Control Board. So now that we have the results, we're doing what we would normally do and have to do now that we have the results. But I do thank him, but I think we might have been a little bit misinformed that.
And I'm sure that the city, are not going to be paying for that independent study. I believe the developers should go and pay for it. Mr. Celestin, you do have a presentation before we go into discussion, or anybody when we put their piece of word? I'm sure everybody has something to say. Can we listen to you, Mr. Celestin?
Yes, Madam Mayor, member of the council, Joe Celestin, 14320 Northeast 22nd Avenue. I am with the Joe Celestin Civil Engineer General Builder. I am a licensed general engineering contractor, certified and trained at the University of Florida Department of Environmental. The city has my credential in that matter. I am the site manager. I'm also a general contractor and also an architect, engineer architect.
That's your resume?
This is, well, I got to give my credential, being the site manager and responsible to represent the interests of the city as your employee. Biscayne Landing is a major liability to the city because the permits are under our name. And Madam Mayor, I heard you mention the fact that we didn't bring the matter to you. As the manager of the site, the moment that I had to deal with the developer, if there is any material that must come to the site, they need to give me the information as where the material is coming from. The developer provided me the address of where
the 300,000 yards of material were to come from. I went on site, I analyzed the material, I took the information from the slag, which is the grout mixer that they were using with the material. I researched it and come back to the manager. I said, I will not allow this product to come on the site. The manager told me, set a meeting with the developer. We met, and I issued a letter of non-acceptance of the goods. The developer went, in fact, provided us with an email from Miami-Dade contradicting my recommendation not to use the good. I met again with the manager. The manager said, you issue a stop work to them, but the Department of Environmental say it's okay to do it. And he would have to allow them to continue. And I said, I wouldn't allow it to continue because I believe, based on the rules of Chapter 24 that we all train under, the chemical in that good is not consistent with the rules and regulation. I requested that the developer bring further testing. The developer brought the testing, and there were high level of number of other metals, including arsenic and lead aluminum, and others. Durham issued a certified letter providing that they can use the material. I had a 3-hour discussion with the assistant director of Durham, with the city manager on the phone, not agreeing with the scientists, and I decided that I'm not in agreement based on the rules that the material should not be accepted at Biscayne Landing. I never had an opportunity to speak with the director of Durham, which is one of the most respected environmentalist scientists, engineer in Florida, for that matter, in the country, Mr. Wilbur, who is here, the director. He and I, we were at training. That's what we do, scientists and engineer together. And I brought the matter to the board. He was one of the panelists concerning my site. And he was kind enough to say I would look into it based on your assessment. And immediately thereafter, he did, and he ordered his department to resend the approval and the permits to bring the material. And the site has been on hold for several months now. The whole thing is on stop because more testing. In fact, I went to the FDP, I went to EPA to bring my position forward, and I had the support from the EPA and all of the scientists that my position was correct, and the director was good enough to agree with me, and we sent it the Department of Environmental approval. And Durham further paid out of their own pocket for all the testing to be done because they had provided the approval, which I, in my view as a site manager, I had demanded that no material come to the site prior being approved. In fact, one of the things that I brought to the manager, the construction development site where that site is, where the material is coming out of, they're taking it out because it's contaminated, no good for them to use it in Brickell. They're buying fill from somewhere else, and they're removing that fill that we're receiving for being contaminated, and they can't use it there. So I'm saying, if it's not good for them to use on the project in Brickell, why would we want to use it in North Miami? I wanted the manager, I wanted the developer to provide me with the environmental report from the site. I was not able to get that, but after a month of fighting, I was able to receive that, and I reissue again another stop order to stop bringing the material. Durham went to the due diligence, and they came back with a plan, and the developer requested a variance to use a material that is not qualified, that the level of contaminants are in excess of the level required by law. And due to the fact that we have a groundwater remediation system already established, the conclusion was, yes, the material is contaminated, but we have a system to clean up the groundwater that is in operation right now. We can use that system to clean that material. I just want to say one thing. Based on my experience with the Biscayne lending, one of the number one elements of the groundwater remediation was the fact that we had high level of ammonia. And this is the reason why we came up with the concept of the injection well to clean the high level of ammonia. We have gas monitoring and other issues, but the main culprit was the ammonia. We know that, I'm not certain, and no science has been done, nothing I have in my hand, to show that the injection well system will also clean up the high level of aluminum on the site. And I also brought to the director and the contractor and the scientists the issue of high arsenic level that was part of the material. Upon our discussion, we talk about that the material, the level was high, but it was not, the leachate was, in concentration, was not offensive to the health and safety, so therefore they would allow it. What concerned me at this point is the fact that we have one lake there that is already completely backfilled. Miami-Dade Derm, under this approval, have adopted all of my proposed recommendation. They've made it as part of the rule to the developer that needs to follow. Additional lakes will be backfilled, and there will be monitoring well next to the lakes. So while they're backfilling the lakes, we can turn around and, through the monitoring well, see if there is any change that material caused to the groundwater. However, the current lake now that's been backfilled, I have been for the past 6 months trying to get the developer even prior to install the monitoring well so I can monitor the difference in the groundwater. I was not able to get that, and that is part of the requirement of the permitting. I, together with the manager, called the assistant director of DERM, demanded that, but I was not able to get that, and the lake is now has been completed. The one good thing about it is that gives me a little bit of relief is that none of the goods that came from Brickell City was put on that lake. They use concrete rubble. To give you a clear scenario of this, under the contract that we have, the developer is required to use clean fill to do the lake filling at Biscayne Landing. The developer wished to use construction debris to recycle and use it as a clean fill instead of buying clean fill, which is probably in the millions. There is a process that is legally accepted where clean concrete can be recycled and reused as clean fill. However, soil came from excavated area from somewhere else is not automatically determined to be clean fill. Since this material is going directly in a lake, and the water table in the area is at 2 feet, those lakes are at probably 30 to 40 feet, which is very deep into our groundwater. As I mentioned during the meeting, water is a very closed circuit. Whatever water at Biscayne Landing is the same
Celestin,
water.
I'm not as elaborate as you are. Can we focus on that part right now, and then we'll go to the second part of your presentation?
Which part you saying, Madam?
No.
She's still talking. He's still talking.
Yeah,
about the
I
same
know,
thing.
but we're going to the law.
Yeah.
What's the
Okay.
item says? But I would like to focus on the problem right now. I know where you're going,
Okay.
but I would prefer that you go to that route later on. So,
Right. So,
because I don't want to lose the
okay. The
exactly
issue
what's
is
going on.
there is a process to clean the current contaminated soil that's on site right now. The developer has said that if they are required to move the soil off site, they will. And also, I have to let you know that the approval from the board at Miami-Dade also clearly established that it's not a green light for the developer to use their approval to backfill the lake. Miami-Dade made it clear that the city of North Miami, not only as the owner of the property, but as the local government with this jurisdiction to oversee the project, had the power to determine whether they want the developer to reuse the material. It's not simply up to DERM. DERM just render an opinion that they believe that the material is suitable if you're going to have a remediation process. However, it is subject to approval from Miami-Dade, from the local government here, Public Works, South Florida Water Management, and any other federal and state government entity that has jurisdiction over the matter. As it is right now, we have a presentation for you. This is on your screen. This is the field that we are talking about. There are approximately 5 or 6 sites with over 194,000 cubic yards, which is a lot of material. They are all over the site. I have asked the developer, and DERM have accepted my recommendation to have a soil management plan, which will include some kind of dust control, because with all these dirt sitting on the site, we're in a hurricane-prone state. If we had wind blowing, we can cover the surrounding area with a soil that is not really very clean. The developer is currently putting water on the top of the piling of soil. I've asked, and DERM has agreed, for them to put what they call some kind of protected cover, because they are not going to use the material. It's been sitting there for 7 months, blowing up, and I am waiting for the developer to come up with the cover. If you approve, a cover is needed immediately to protect the material from blowing all over the neighborhood. We have several piles of material all over the site. At this time, the city manager has expressed his position that you guys have the ultimate authority. We've done our job. It's up to you guys now whether you wanted to approve the material, and if you want us to do further testing, we will do so. And I have some other concern, but if you wanted to keep it limited to just whether you want to reuse the soil, my recommendation to you would be it would be very difficult to use this soil, and if you are going to use it, as I told the city manager, there must be a very separate form of indemnification and sort of a policy dealing specifically to indemnify the city for the use of this material in the lake. Because once they backfill the lake, there is a proposal to put a structure on it. So if it's discovered that later, as DERM proposed further evaluation, once the work is completed, if you later discover that there are contamination and the building is erected on the site, you end up with the liability, because you ultimately, the landlord and the owner of the property, you would be required to dig it off, and at a very exorbitant cost, almost impossible to do. So you gotta review your exposure in terms of what you want to do. You are the the body that is in charge of making the decision.
The injection well that you just showed, is it the one that blew up the other day?
Yes, that's the injection well we completed with the extraction system for the groundwater remediation system, which I supervise the construction. We have some issue with that, maybe for another time. That also have major issue going on, but at this time we own the soil. So, any question?
Mayor and council, we also have the director from Durham. He's here to provide information as to what he presented to the Quality Control Board and that finding to better have you make a good assessment, if you so desire.
Joe, go ahead.
Mr. Wilbur Mayorga is the chief.
He won't be as long as Mr. Celestine.
Does he have a presentation for us?
Environmentalist of the state, one of the most.
That's done.
Is he here to answer our question, or he has a presentation? Is that what
He's here to present what he...
The finding?
The findings and what he presented to the Quality Control Board and what their findings were.
My name is, for the record, Wilbur Mayorga, Miami-Dade County, Durham. Thank you for the opportunity to come. I appreciate the invitation. I would like just to provide some factual information about the evaluation of the material. So I would like to...
Can you speak louder, please?
Yes. The first data that I want to share with you is as soon as the city called us that there were concerns with the quality of the material, our department has a simple policy in this regard. We don't rely on the information submitted by a consultant working for a responsible party. We prefer to have our own validation, our own data collected by our staff and run by our own lab. So actually I can tell you exactly what we found with those sample results collected by Durham after the phone call that we received from your staff. We analyzed for about 90 chemicals per every single soil sample that we collected from those stockpiles that you saw. Of all those chemicals, the only one, yes, thank you. So from each of those stockpiles, we collected representative samples using a composite technique. We analyzed for 90 chemicals. Only aluminum exceeded the leachate test. It's called SPLP. It's a leaching test. It's a predictor of the potential leachate of a soil to impact the groundwater. It's the best predictor that we have. However, the first important clarification, not a single chemical, including aluminum, is above the human health. Not a single one. Arsenic is consistent with background, and we ran leaching tests for arsenic, and it was below the criteria. Again, of the 90 chemicals, only aluminum was above the criteria for leachability potential. So that's important because I understand and I heard the concerns of the citizens. We don't have chemicals that have a human health concern. What we have is one chemical that failed leachability testing. So what are the procedures to deal with one chemical that exceeds leachability? The law, including the state and the county, have established procedures, alternatives, similar to your procedures for a variance for zoning or other city ordinance. We have procedures that establish how to develop alternatives when a chemical is above. Let me give you a specific example. Can you show this document, please? Thank you. So please take a look at this stockpile. You, of course, notice that it's open ground. Of course, you are aware of the rainy season that we're just going through. We had the ability of existing groundwater monitor wells, 3 of them, located adjacent to some of these stockpiles. So we took the second step. One is, what is the result? It's a lab test. You take the soil, you expose to a liquid extraction at a very low pH, 4.2. You check the material to simulate the percolation effect, the leachate effect, and you have a result. One real-life test that is allowed by the law. What is the groundwater quality adjacent to those stockpiles? Do we see a problem in the groundwater? We asked for 3 monitoring wells. The results came negative. We have actual data that we share with the board. Your city staff was there with us. We had an excellent technical exchange. The EQCB board are 5 PhD members, experts in these fields, precisely to hear the recommendations from the department that are based on an application. The department does not apply. An applicant came through with a variance request to address the soil. But let me go back to the sequence. So we had the SPLP. The next important element, what is the groundwater quality? Do we have an issue already there that it shows a concern? The results were negative. Obviously, if you see the stockpile, you can see that it's subject to water runoff and percolation through the soil. Your city staff has made a very specific statement to you that is very important. Water table, 2 feet. So the aquifer is right underneath that, very in the immediate vicinity, 2 feet, 48 inches below surface. So those monitoring wells were clean. We're not satisfied with that. So we further analyzed. There was a valid question to us, a concern raised to us. Are you evaluating with the best possible technique for a material that is going to be submerged into the lake? So actually we run tests at our lab to simulate what happens to this material when it's submerged. The results are actually, it still shows a concern, but are much lower, about 36% of what the SPLP indicator tells you.
Is it 36% higher or
36% lower?
lower?
So if you have a 10, it will be 3.6. So it's important to understand the SPLP, as I said, is an excellent indicator. We codified, but we also codified the ability to evaluate the leachability potential with other means. For example, the reason we have to go through a variance, similar to city process for other issues, if the use was above ground, the actual current state law and current county code allows the material to be utilized, provided the groundwater monitoring data demonstrates continuous monitoring that it does not impact the groundwater. That's the key issue. Third, let me take a step back. Why are we having this problem? This material is a mixture. Was removed and then it lost its integrity. So it increased the surface water. Let me use a very simple example. You all know that by increasing the surface area, you have greater contact, so you have more exposure. So this material, under the normal monolith conditions, will not be an issue. Therefore, we have to understand what will be the process that it goes once it's placed into a lake field. And what we discover is very basic chemistry 101. Is pH dependent. The raw material has a high pH. When you run the SPLP test, it fails. When you run it simulating the lake field exposed to surface water, our groundwater, surface water, is pH 8. At that pH, it doesn't leach. But there's going to be a transition period where the material is submerged and then the buffer capacity of the aquifer adjusts the pH to 8. I cannot predict to you the time to achieve that, but we know that is a process that will occur. So therefore, the applicant submitted a request to utilize the lake field, relying on there will be a buffer capacity once the pH gets to the region of our natural water of pH 8, the leachability potential will be removed. However, it's not enough that it's just a theory, notwithstanding some additional research conducted in lab tests that DERM has done. The process of a lake field requires groundwater monitoring wells surrounding. My colleague recommended the same. But there's an important additional element. While the lake field is in process, surface water samples are taken within the lake field that is being filled. So we have an early warning system. Finally, there is a reality. It is a sad reality, but it is a reality. Biscayne Landing, former landfill, has the entire site with ammonia, groundwater contamination, and iron. The system that was implemented and is now in place removes all the contamination. There's 3,700 feet in the southeastern portion, downgrading of the lakes that are proposed. But it has an important key advantage to all of you. And this is up to the developer, the city, based on your arrangements. We provide the options allowed by the law and the mechanism, the EQCB board, to go through that process. We don't impose, we just provide you the technical analysis. We're an extension of your staff. And we provide the research and technical findings. So, there was a statement before in reference to the treatment capabilities of the systems. There is no treatment. The same way that ammonia will be handled in the event that the buffer capacity is below what is needed, you have a system that will prevent any inappropriate exposure to the receptor that is the key. The driver of the remedial system for Biscayne Landing is the ecosystems, these receptors. We have an intersector recovery system to ensure that the nutrients, someone spoke about nutrients concerns, that the nutrients loading that we had for all these years is stopped. That same system can stop certainly aluminum. However, we rely on the process and the monitoring to safeguard that we don't add pollution. So we're putting very specific conditions to that effect. At the end, it's a decision to be made by all of you, and we respect that. We're here to provide you the data that we analyze. Furthermore, there is a misunderstanding that this is unique to this material. We actually collected 160 samples countywide, and we do have aluminum in our natural soil. Exists. We actually took the next step. To the surprise of many, we do a lot of research. And we found that the leachability testing actually it fails by your natural soil, not at the same concentration. Will not minimize or simplify the issue. This material fails at a higher concentration. I only want to illustrate that we're not dealing with a situation that doesn't have some common elements. So the natural soil has a leachability of aluminum above the standard. So does other type of materials. So what we wanted to provide is, one, all the chemicals conducted by the department, not a single chemical is above the human health, including aluminum. Aluminum failed the SPLP, the leachability test procedure that we have in place. There are alternatives allowed by the code. The 1% to the bore is one of them. And it can be used provided the safeguards that I briefly described to save time, because I'm looking forward to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councils, questions?
Yes, ma'am. Olita Partners, shame on you. City management, shame on you. DERM, shame on you. The time to have had this discussion is not tonight after you've been caught with your hand in the cookie jar. The time for you to have brought this to our attention, Mr. Manager, was back in March, April, May, June, July, August, or now almost complete September. All of these months, you've all known you've been endangering the health of our residents. I'm thankful to the former Mayor Wolin for happening to be in the room when this first came up on September the 12th. I'm thankful to former Mayor Celestin, and you know I've been very critical of you in this position before. So thankful to you for bringing this to the attention of DERM. But guys, this site of all sites in Dade County is the last place you should ever dream of bringing any unclean fill. You knew what you were bringing there. You brought it by the ton. You could have bought clean fill somewhere else. You didn't. And now the entire project is again under question and being looked at with a raised eyebrow. You've brought it upon yourselves. I can't tell you how angry I am that nobody talked to me about this. We've talked about your spine road. We've sat down with people from Olita Partners in my office and talked about the future of amenities. Mr. Manager, I've met with you many times in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Nobody told any of us council members about it before. But just like the mayor said, somebody gets cancer, if somebody has a health problem in the future, they're going to look at us as the responsible parties for having allowed this unclean fill to be dumped there. My opinion, short version, no further work on anything at Biscayne Landing until all of the current dirty fill is removed. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everything out of there, nothing more, and too bad if that cost everybody a lot of money. You brought it on yourselves. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor.
Any other comments?
Can we finish the discussion up here first?
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah.
Councilwoman.
I'm upset also that we had to hear about this by accident. Thank you, Mayor Wallen. I'd like to know when we would have heard about it. Thank you, Mayor Celestine. Whether I want to be as drastic as Scott, I'm not sure, but my number one concern is that we do not have contamination brought in or sitting on Biscayne Landing. This was a Superfund site. If this is going to be a contamination, it should not be there. I'm sorry for the developer who may have gotten approval to bring this contamination on, but we can't have this. I'm so concerned for our aquifer, our Biscayne Bay. Willie's down there, my neighbor. I don't go out in the bay, but if there's blooms, if there's problems going on in Biscayne Bay, then it's probably coming from Biscayne Landing, and we need monitoring. That being said, I'm not an expert. I read this petition, from what I understand from Mr. Mayorga. This was the most recent document, September 4th, was a recommendation by Durham to allow a variance for unclean fill. And I hear that this has, in fact, been passed by the board. I don't know where we go from there. I know the project has stopped. I asked our attorney today whether do we have counsel still on Biscayne Landing to represent us on this lease? Do we still have a retainer?
Not an active retainer, but we can certainly reactivate it if necessary.
I, number one, would like to know what our legal position is, what our remedies are. I agree with the mayor, and we discussed this yesterday with the manager. Not being an expert, if you haven't been online, we have dozens and dozens of tests talking about slag, aluminum, etc. I would like to go along with having an independent inspection by an environmental engineer to tell us what is really in there. If this is not clean fill, it needs to be removed. If it's acceptable, if it's not a problem, I want our own engineer, our own environmental engineer, to tell us that it's clean, not the developer, not Mr. Mayorga. We need our own engineer. Also, I think we need to have a legal, the person who's representing us with regard to Biscayne Landing. I had copied the same pages that you gave us tonight, Mr. Manager, about it being unlawful to place any illegal, unsafe environmental material on our land if it violates environmental laws. So we do have an issue there. Does this landfill with this aluminum, does it in fact violate the environmental law or not? What is our remedy? Who's going to pay for the cleanup? What are our rights? And we need to engage our attorney to give us our rights. I did speak to Mr. Swearlow, Mr. Tillman today by phone, and this was the first time I was advised the work has been stopped. So
I issue a stop work immediately. I issue a stop work when I went. My job is to go to all over the county, wherever they're receiving goods from, whether it's in Aventura. I've been to Key Biscayne and the Sonatas No Hotel. So when I went to that site, I spent a couple of weeks there doing assessment of the cutting material.
When did you issue that stop order?
Immediately after I drew my conclusion, which was a week. In fact, I told them not to bring the material on site until they receive.
But what date?
Until they receive my approval.
Date. Approximate date.
It's on the package. I think
in May?
No, that was,
That was in
January.
January. And let me just clarify.
I told them in January
that-
not to bring the goods.
Yeah. Yeah.
For you, please, I want to keep the decorum of the meeting going. I don't
Sure.
need clarification. The truth is, staff, Mr. Manager, you knew about this 6 to 8 months ago, and not a word was breathed to this sitting council or the old council. That is fully unexcusable. I'm sorry to jump in on your time, Madam Councilwoman, but you attended workshops on September 12th with the Quality and Environmental Control Board without any legal representation from the city, without the council knowing about it. This whole thing is a disaster, and it's got to stop. Honest, open, and transparent is the only way that Biscayne Landing as a development project is going to work. You're in violation of 9.1 of your lease agreement with us for bringing unclean fill on the site. I'd be all in favor of voting to just terminate the darn thing right now. And if anybody wants to second that, I will. But please, Mr. Manager, don't jump in and say I need to clarify. We get it. We just listened to 20 minutes of hoorah. Here's the real truth. Y'all screwed up, and it's time to pay the piper.
Councilwoman, you done?
Sorry.
It's okay. He finished it because, you know, I'm concerned legally. I'm concerned with what our rights are. And we did, our manager, I did not read the transcript. I haven't had time. But you did attend a meeting on September 4th. We didn't know about it. You didn't have legal counsel there. I don't know where that puts us. Where are we with regarding the stop order? We've got a stop order. You've got permission to put this stuff on. We've got to make sure that we are not going to be sued also for stopping the work and not allowing it to proceed. So we've got to bring an attorney in there.
I don't think so, because our job, our position, the reason that we stopped the work, we stopped it because I deemed, and I sat with the city manager, that the goods were not acceptable. One of the main things, we told them it was not acceptable. They met with us and said, you don't have the authority because Durham's, I said not to bring it until I draw my complete conclusion that whether I want it or not. They said, well, Durham said we can bring it while we're doing the study. I said, no, we want to ensure that whatever material you're going to bring on site, I have to certify it first before you bring it.
What is your recommendation right now?
Well, my recommendation right now to the city is to have the material removed from the site.
Thank you. Councilman Bien-Aimé? I'm sorry, are you done, Councilwoman?
I'm done, thank
Councilman
you.
Bien-Aimé.
I understand that we agree on one thing. The material that there now is contaminated, which is a violation of the agreement between the tenant and the landlord, the city of North Miami. My question, how much will it cost to remove the material? Mr. Celestine.
That's not us.
In the millions.
I'm asking you a question.
Probably a little over $1 million. The developer, not only the issue is not removing the material, is that in order for you to remove that material, because it's contaminated, you have to pay a landfill that received that kind of goods to accept it. So we may be looking at $5 to $10 million.
Not we, the city, though.
No. I'm saying, because understand, that material, in order for you to dispose any contaminated material, whatever the contamination is, you would have to pay a landfill that's specialized in receiving that kind of material, who has that kind of
needs.
The remediation process to store it there.
Okay.
And they would charge you per truckload to receive it. For example, if I have a truckload of contaminated concrete, it will cost me $600 for one truck.
Okay.
And there are 10,000 trucks right now at Biscayne Landing.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for the city attorney. The agreement that we have with the tenant is to bring clean material on the site, which is right now is a violation of that contract. And my recommendation will be to have an outside counsel to review the agreement, and at the same time, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do with the project, and that's it. That's what I'm asking you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sterling.
Thank you, Madam. That's a lot of chemistry going around. I just want to go back from the beginning. I know it's hard as a parents to actually pat our kids on the back when they're doing right. I think we should pat our staff on the back for doing the right things. I know for sure that from the time that Mr. Celestin has been fighting with the developer regarding the stop order, and the words has been out there that he was doing wrong to them. Some people didn't want to listen to him. Some did. They have been working. I feel that we did hire him, and we have a city manager that was doing his job. Stop them from doing what they were doing, or actually bringing the dirt and actually test the material and take it to DERM, advocate on our behalf, and waiting for the right time to bring it to us. Fortunately, that former Mayor Frank Wolin was there on the discussion where they actually take the tenants to DERM, or to the quality control board. That's where they actually met and overheard the discussion and bring it to us. So we have to understand, which we are grateful for to Mr. Rowland for bringing it to us as well. But we have to understand, if it was not for our staff, it wouldn't be before the quality board. But again, I know it's very emotional. I am emotional about it as well. But we have to give them credit, because they were doing what they were supposed to do. Shouldn't they advise us at early on? I know I heard about the issue before, but I know that what they were doing. Yes, they should have maybe, but at the same time, we have to give them credit. Without them taking the right step, it wouldn't be before us, or anybody else would know about it. Again, kudos, and thank you so much for doing your work. Let's go back. Let's come back now to the chemistry that was going around, which I felt, actually I passed it with a C. So that still does not qualify me for discussing the environmental issue. But one thing that I understand, that the dirt that actually on the side is not clean. My question is that, is it cleaner, I'm just going to talk, as Scott would say, layman term, is it cleaner than what we actually have now, or is it worse? The dirt that they actually dump on our site.
What we have on site is municipal waste, which is class 1 garbage. When I said class 1 in the normal term,
I understand that much. Go ahead.
Class 1 garbage is just regular garbage from class 1 garbage only produce methane gas and some other contaminants. But when you bring soil in, as the scientist mentioned earlier,
I heard aluminum.
Yeah, no. Normally, those contaminants are in existence in all soil. But what happened to this landing, what happened to the one that we just received, they're just a little in excess, or a lot in excess of what the acceptable level is, as it relates to the leachate, meaning that when you dilute the actual soil into water, what you call the garbage juice in a regular term.
The one question that I have for Durham, it wouldn't change any ways of what we're going to vote, however we're going to vote, but I just want to clarify it. Yeah. If we did not have the underground remediation process going on right now, would Durham accept this dirt to come?
We would not have been able to use it. The approval that Durham provided is simply because we currently have a cleanup system established running. My only personal issue with that, we've closed that landfill. We are trying to clean what we have there currently, not bringing more contaminants to add on the top of what we have. But that's the only issue that I have. And also, I want to make sure that since the developer is here, while I'm still at the site, for them, they're not listening. They get to do whatever they wanted to do during the permit process.
Let's focus.
Okay.
Let's focus. My other questions for Durham. If I don't mind addressing him, as long as it's just stay down there with me for I can better understand. So Mr. Celestin just answered. If we didn't have the water underground remediation processing right now, would you accept that dirt right now in a clean fill?
I can be very specific. I actually stated that to the EQCP board. we're relying on the buffer capacity, the monitoring, but also with the recovery system as a backup. So the short answer is no, we will not recommend without the recovery system in place.
Okay, that's lead me to my next question. So when it enough will be enough? So how would we know if the developer goes before DERM, although that DERM tested, knowing that this is not a clean dirt, but yet again we have a process going on. DERM allow them to dump anyways. So how do we know if by any chance we, out of our crazy mind, we vote this tonight? We said, okay, you know what? We trust DERM. We're supposed to rely on DERM. Let's pass it. So how would we know enough is enough? How would we know when the variance, reaches capacity that they cannot continue dumping dirty material? How would that happen?
Thank you. As I said before, the recovery system is a backup system. We're relying on the monitoring required by the board order and by our permit conditions to assess sentinel wells. Even before the recovery systems, they will be required, and that's a decision because it's an auction available to the entities who control the property. It's an auction. The monitoring that is required is to validate, has the buffer capacity, is that sufficient there? So the monitor wells right outside the lake field do not detect the aluminum. The basic principle in plain English, we have a leachability test and failure. We have reviewed lake field data that shows that all the products that have a lower leachability potential have not translated to actual groundwater impact. So that's why we did the research. We're still conservative, and that's why we will not recommend this without the backup of the recovery systems. But we rely on the groundwater monitoring adjacent to the lake field operation to ensure that we have the data to answer your questions. But I understand the dilemma.